Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at something that can really make a difference in how well you communicate in English, and that is pronunciation.
It is often overlooked, isn't it?
It really is. But I think for anyone who's trying to improve their English, it's a game changer. We've got this really cool guide here that we're going to dig into.
Oh, excellent.
It's packed with practical tips, so we're going to try to bring those to life for you and help you kind of navigate those pronunciation hurdles.
I love that.
So let's just jump right in. The guide starts by talking about common pitfalls, the things that people tend to trip up on when they're speaking English. And the first one they mention is something that I know I have struggled with, the TH sounds.
Oh, yeah.
They can be tough.
Yeah, well, they're really unique to English.
Yeah.
You know, the TH sounds, which are represented by thick as in think and A as in this, they just don't exist in a lot of other languages.
Right, so like fit, that's the one where you kind of have to stick your tongue between your teeth.
Exactly. And for the A sound, as in this or that, you add a little vocal cord vibration.
Okay, so it's like breath control and tongue placement.
It is. It is. And the guide actually suggests, like, to really get a feel for it, gently place your tongue between your teeth and then blow out air.
Oh, okay.
And you can actually feel the air kind of moving over your tongue.
Yeah. Oh, that's good advice.
It is.
I like that the guide uses these visuals to help you see how to make the sound. I think that's so helpful.
It is, especially for sounds that are unfamiliar.
Yeah. Now, another pitfall that they highlight is the short and long vowel sounds, and they give this example of ship versus sheep.
Right. It's a very subtle difference, but in English, that tiny little difference completely changes the meaning of the word.
Completely changes the meaning. Yeah.
And the guide uses phonetic symbols to represent these sounds. So we've got air for the short I in ship, and then I for the long E as in sheep.
Got it. So it's like ship and sheep.
Exactly. And basically what's happening is for the short, your tongue is relaxed in your mouth, and for the long E, you stretch your tongue upwards and hold the sound a bit longer.
It's amazing how such tiny adjustments make such a big difference.
It is. It's fascinating.
It is. The guide also mentions silent letters.
Oh, yes.
Which I guess are just one of those quirks of the English language.
Right. English has tons of them. I mean, like the word comb. You don't pronounce the B at all.
You don't. It's just comb, not comb.
Exactly.
So if you're trying to sound it out, you're going to run into some trouble.
Absolutely. And then there's word stress, right?
Oh, word stress.
This is where it gets really interesting. They use this example, I want a big able E.
Okay, so that sentence, it's like almost musical when you say it.
It is. Word stress is like the rhythm of English.
Yeah.
And it tells us what's important in a sentence, right?
Okay.
So in this case, it highlights that you want a large apple, not just any apple.
Right. But if you put the stress on the wrong words, it sounds really strange.
Precisely. Yeah, it changes the meaning completely.
Okay, so this is blowing my mind a little. It's not just about sounding right.
No.
It's about actually being understood.
Exactly. Now let's delve into a sound that's often overlooked. But it's the backbone of so many English words, and that is the schwa.
Okay, the schwa. It sounds a little ominous.
It kind of does, but it's really not.
Okay.
The schwa, which is represented by this symbol, it's like that neutral, almost lazy vowel sound that we use in unstressed syllables.
Okay.
And the guide gives the example of the word about. We don't say A-B-A-A, with a strong emphasis on bout.
Right.
It's about.
You're right. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I never even realized it was its own sound.
And here's the kicker. They say that it is the most frequent sound in English.
Really? So, like, if you can master the schwa, you're golden.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like the secret code to unlock fluent, natural-sounding English.
Okay, I'm sold. Now, the guide talks about some foundational concepts, like starting with vowels and consonants.
Right.
Yeah. Which I know sounds really basic, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
There is. I mean, a lot of people can tell you what a vowel or a consonant is, but they don't really understand how they work.
Right.
And that's essential for pronunciation.
Yeah.
Right. So vowels, like the sounds in apple, open, or idea, they're produced when air flows freely from your lungs.
Okay.
And consonants, on the other hand, they involve some sort of obstruction of that airflow.
So it's all about how the air is moving.
Exactly. And vowels can be short or long, right?
Yeah.
Like the I in sit is short, but the E in seat is long.
I never thought about it that way before. I knew the words sounded different, but I didn't know it was the vowel length.
It's these subtle distinctions that make English pronunciation so interesting.
Yeah.
And understanding these building blocks, the vowels and consonants, can help you tackle those trickier sounds.
Absolutely. So we've got pitfalls, we've got the schwa, we've got vowels versus consonants. Where do we go from here?
Let's revisit word and sentence stress.
Okay, that big apple thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's all about emphasizing.
Exactly. And the guide suggests, to kind of get a feel for it, just play around with stressing different words in a sentence and see how it changes the meaning.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Like a little pronunciation puzzle.
Exactly. So we've got vowels and consonants, we've got word stress, and then the last piece is intonation.
Okay, intonation. That's like the rise and fall of our voices.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And this is what gives our speech emotion and helps us signal things like questions. Right?
Okay.
For instance, listen to the difference between "you're coming" and "you're coming."
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah, that upward inflection at the end totally makes it a question.
Totally. So intonation, it's subtle, but it adds a layer of nuance and expressiveness to our speech.
Yeah. Okay, so we've kind of laid the groundwork now. We've got pitfalls, key concepts, even touched on the schwa sound, so I feel like I'm already a little bit more equipped to tackle pronunciation. But what I think is great about this guide is that they give practical exercises.
Oh, absolutely.
They just jump right into mirror practice.
Yes.
Which sounds super simple, but I'm curious to hear why that's so effective.
Well, it adds a visual element to pronunciation.
Yeah.
You could actually see how your mouth is moving.
Right.
And that can be really helpful, especially for sounds that feel unfamiliar.
Yeah.
Like watch yourself make those TH sounds. Make sure your tongue is in the right place.
Oh, you're right. It's instant feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's another exercise they suggest?
Well, they have what they call the minimal pairs drill.
Uh-huh.
And it's all about, again, those tiny sound differences that make a big difference in meaning.
Oh, right. Like ship and sheep.
Exactly. So the guide provides a bunch of minimal pairs.
Yeah.
And they encourage you to say them aloud. Really listen to those subtle distinctions and feel how your mouth moves differently.
I am going to try those later. It's like a little ear training.
It is.
Cool. And then they have the shadowing technique.
Yes.
Which involves finding a short audio or video clip.
Right.
And you're basically becoming their echo.
Exactly. So you mimic their rhythm, their intonation, even their pauses.
So it's like full-on immersion.
It is.
Yeah.
It helps you internalize those natural patterns of spoken English.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love all three of those. Super practical.
Yeah. So with those exercises and the concepts that we've discussed, you're well on your way to mastering English pronunciation.
Awesome. This has been great. I feel like we've covered so much.
We have.
But we've only just scratched the surface of what this guide has to offer.
We have. There's a lot more to explore.
So we'll take a little break and we'll dive back in soon. For now, hold on to those key concepts and maybe give those exercises a try.
Yeah, definitely. We'll pick up where we left off in just a bit.
Sounds good. Okay, we're back, and I'm ready for more pronunciation. Goodness, I feel like we've already learned so much.
Yeah.
But this guide doesn't stop there. It goes deeper and starts breaking down some really tricky sounds.
Yeah, those sounds that just trip people up.
Exactly. So I'm betting you've got some insights on why those sounds in particular are so challenging.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it, how certain sounds can be these real pronunciation hurdles.
They really are.
And you're right, the guide gets really specific about these sounds because they often lead to misunderstandings or they can make someone's accent more pronounced.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's important to really pay attention to those.
Let's tackle them head on then.
Okay.
What's first on the list?
Well, they start with the TH sounds, which we talked about a little bit before.
Right.
But it's understandable why these are difficult because that placement of your tongue between your teeth, it's pretty unique to English.
Yeah, it feels weird.
It does. It takes practice.
For sure.
And the guide even points out some common mispronunciations, like saying sink instead of think or dat instead of that.
Oh, yeah, I've heard those.
Yeah. And it's easy to see how those mistakes happen when you're not used to making that sound.
Definitely.
So the key is to be mindful of that tongue placement.
Right.
Gently between the teeth and blowing air out for that sound, adding that vocal cord vibration for the R.
I'm going to have to practice.
Yeah.
What else do they cover?
Okay, so next they go into the English R,
Ow.
which can be a real tongue twister.
It is.
Especially for speakers whose native language doesn't have a similar sound.
I've heard people say wed instead of red.
Yes.
Ah?
That's a classic example.
Yeah.
And it highlights the difficulty of making that R sound. because you're not actually touching your tongue to the roof of your mouth.
Right.
It's more about positioning it near the roof of your mouth and vibrating it.
So subtle.
It is.
You have to find that sweet spot.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the guide explains how to do that, how to vibrate your tongue at the back of your mouth to create that distinct R sound.
Okay, I'm taking notes. What other sounds do they talk about?
Well, next they bring up another pair that often get confused. The short I versus the long EI.
Ooh, yeah. Those are tricky.
Yeah, and it's easy to mix them up, but as we've seen, even those tiny differences can totally change the meaning of a word.
Yes.
The guide does a great job of explaining how to make each sound. So for the short I, think about words like ship or bit.
Yeah.
Your tongue is relaxed, your lips are unrounded.
Okay.
And then for the long E, imagine saying sheep or seat. You're stretching your tongue upward and pulling your lips back a bit.
Oh, it's all about tongue position and lip movement again?
It is. It's like a delicate dance happening in your mouth.
I love it.
They even have some practice sentences like sit down, please, and sheep are in the field.
Oh, nice.
So you can really get a feel for the difference.
I'm curious, there are two sets of sounds that I know can be really tough for English learners. L and R, and then V and W. Did they talk about those at all?
They do, and they highlight why those are so difficult. You know, for L and R, for example, in a lot of languages, those sounds are interchangeable.
Yeah.
So speakers might pronounce light and right the same way.
Right.
But the guide emphasizes that in English, to make the L sound like in love or ball, your tongue is touching the roof of your mouth, just behind your teeth, while the R, like we said, is more about that subtle tongue curl without touching.
It's all about precision.
It is.
What about V and W?
So for V, like in vase or very, you're lightly placing your upper teeth on your lower lip and blowing air out. But for W, like in water or world, you're rounding your lips slightly and pushing air out without your teeth touching.
So V is teeth on your lip, W is rounded lips.
Exactly. And again, they provide some practice sentences.
Of course they do. They're amazing.
Right, like, I want a vase of flowers, and where is the water?
This is so good. I feel like we've really dug deep, and now we've got all these concrete examples to practice with.
It is about practice.
But what I really appreciate about this guide is that it doesn't just stop at the explanations and the drills. It talks about how to apply this in the real world.
That's so important, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to practice in isolation, but the real test is how we use it in everyday conversation, at work, when we're traveling.
Yeah, totally. So what kind of guidance do they give for actually putting pronunciation into practice?
Well, first and foremost, they encourage us to be mindful of our pronunciation in every conversation.
Okay.
So just to be aware of those sounds that challenge us and to consciously practice them.
So every conversation is like a mini pronunciation workout.
It is. And then for work situations, they highlight the importance of clear pronunciation for sounding confident and professional, especially during presentations or meetings.
Yeah, you don't want to have a mispronounced word distract from your message.
Exactly.
Or, make you sound less credible.
Absolutely. And when it comes to travel, they recommend focusing on the accuracy of key phrases, greetings, directions, things like ordering food.
Oh, yeah.
So even if you make other mistakes, that effort to pronounce those key things correctly can go a long way.
It shows you're trying, right?
Exactly. It shows respect, and it helps ensure that you're understood.
I love that. Even just a simple hello or thank you in the local language is a nice way to connect.
It is.
Yeah.
And they actually give a challenge. They say, try to use one new word or sound that you've learned in conversation each day.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. Pay attention to how people respond and see if they understand you.
Yeah, I like that challenge a lot. So, obviously there are tons of resources out there for practicing pronunciation.
There are.
Does the guide suggest any specific ones?
They do. They point to online pronunciation dictionaries.
Okay.
Where you can listen to native speakers pronounce words and phrases.
Oh, yeah, those are so helpful.
Websites like Forvo and Cambridge Dictionary are good examples. They also mention pronunciation apps, which are great for targeted practice and feedback.
Yeah, like what are some of those?
So there's Elsa Speak and SpeechLing are pretty popular.
Cool. I'll have to check those out.
And of course, YouTube channels and podcasts dedicated to pronunciation.
Of course. I love those. Those are some of my favorites.
Yes, and there are some great ones out there, like Rachel's English with Lucy.
Yes.
They break down complex sounds and give lots of practice tips.
So good.
And then, of course, you've got those language exchange platforms like HelloTalk and Tan.
Oh, yeah, those are good.
Which are great for finding native speakers to practice with.
Nothing beats talking to a native speaker.
Nothing. It's the best way to apply what you've learned and get feedback on your pronunciation.
Totally. But I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by all the resources and techniques out there.
It can be.
So how do we stay focused? How do we stay motivated? What does the guide say about that?
Well, they emphasize the importance of continuous learning and self-assessment.
Okay.
So pronunciation, it's not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing journey.
It's a process.
It is. They recommend recording yourself speaking.
Ooh, that's scary.
I know, right?
That helpful.
It is, because then you can compare it to a native speaker.
You don't realize how you sound until you hear it.
You don't, and it's all about honest self-assessment.
Right.
They also encourage seeking feedback from teachers, language exchange partners, or even online forums like the language learning communities on Reddit.
Yes, sometimes you need that outside perspective.
You do.
Yeah.
And they also stress the importance of consistency.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
We were. And even short bursts of practice, like 10 minutes a day, can make a huge difference over time.
It's about building those habits.
It is.
Yeah.
So making pronunciation practice a part of your daily routine.
Yeah.
And they remind us to be patient and celebrate those small victories.
Yes. You got to celebrate the small wins.
You do. Now, the guide ends with a really great tip that I think is perfect to kind of wrap up this part of our conversation.
I am all ears.
They suggest keeping a pronunciation journal.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a place to track your progress, jot down words or sounds you find challenging, and revisit them over time to see how far you've come.
I love that. Like a little pronunciation diary. So you can track your journey.
Exactly. And it helps you stay focused and allows you to celebrate your achievements.
Wow, this has been so eye-opening.
It has.
I feel so much more aware of pronunciation and all the different pieces that go into it.
Me too. And I think our listener out there is probably feeling the same way.
For sure. So before we wrap up this whole deep dive, let's just take a quick moment to recap everything we've learned.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back to bring this deep dive to a close. All right, we're back. Ready to wrap up this epic pronunciation deep dive.
I am. I feel like we've been on quite a journey.
We have. It's been so interesting exploring all these different aspects of pronunciation.
It really has, and I think it shows just how important pronunciation is for effective communication.
It's not just about getting the words right. It's about all those subtle nuances that can really make a difference.
So true. So before we say goodbye, let's quickly recap those key takeaways from this fantastic guide we've been looking at.
Okay, sounds good.
First and foremost, it's about awareness. Knowing those common pronunciation pitfalls that can trip us up.
Those danger zones, like you called them?
Exactly. Like those TH sounds, mixing up short and long vowels, those silent letters that can sneak in, the power of word stress, and of course, the ever-present schwa.
Oh, yeah, the schwa. I feel like just knowing about those things is half the battle.
It really is. It's like having a mental checklist before you even start speaking.
Totally. Then we talked about those foundational concepts,
Yes.
those building blocks of pronunciation.
The vowels and consonants, word and sentence stress, and intonation.
Understanding how those all work together is key.
Absolutely. But of course, it's not just theory. This guide gave us so many practical exercises that we can use to improve.
Yeah, I love that part.
Mirror practice, minimal pairs drills, the shadowing technique.
All those are so helpful, and we can actually do those, you know.
Exactly. We can incorporate them into our daily lives.
And then we got into those really tricky sounds that tend to give English learners a hard time.
Oh, yeah. Those.
We talked about the TH sounds, the English R.
The short I versus long E.
Yes.
The L and R confusion, and then the V and W.
So many sounds.
I feel like we really tackled them head on, though.
We did. And what's great is that this guide explains why those sounds are so challenging.
Yeah.
And it gives us examples and practice sentences so we actually have something to work with.
It's not just like, figure it out.
Exactly. But one of the things that I really appreciate about this guide is that it goes beyond just practicing those individual sounds. It talks about real-world application.
Yeah, how to use all of this in actual conversations.
Exactly. So being mindful of our pronunciation in every conversation, at work, when we're traveling.
Yeah, bringing it all together.
It is.
And, you know, we've got all these amazing resources that are available to us, like online dictionaries and pronunciation apps.
Yes.
YouTube channels, podcasts.
And language exchange partners.
So many things.
Mm.
But it's also important to remember that consistency is key.
So true.
And to be patient with ourselves. Because pronunciation is a journey, it's not something that happens overnight.
It's a process.
It is. And we have to celebrate those small victories along the way.
And remember to keep that pronunciation journal.
Oh, yes, that was a great tip. A way to track your progress and see how far you've come.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel so much more knowledgeable about pronunciation now.
Me too. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to keep practicing and improving.
Absolutely. So to everyone out there who's on their pronunciation journey, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, have fun with it.
And remember, clear and confident communication is within your reach.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.